9 bone-chilling sleepover horror stories that haunt you forever. Don't sleep again. The night was heavy with whispers, secrets lurking in every corner of the dimly lit room. 4 friends huddled together on stained sleeping bags, eyes wide, hearts thumping like war drums. It was the kind of sleepover that promised thrills but brought a chill. The air crackled with tension as Emma leaned in closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "Did you guys hear about the old Miller house?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with both excitement and fear. Rumor had it, the house stood empty, haunted by a girl who vanished during a sleepover decades ago, body never found. The wind howled outside, dragging shadows across the walls, as if the house itself was trying to warn them. The stories of past sleepovers filled the air like an electric haze. Each tale darker than the last. Jenny's voice trembled as she spoke of a girl who went to sleep, only to wake up in a world of nightmares, her friends standing over her with eerily grinning faces, eyes hollow and vacant. "They say she couldn't escape, not until dawn," Jenny confessed, burying her head in a pillow, dampened with fresh fear. Shafts of moonlight sliced through the darkness, throwing ghostly shapes on the walls, holding their breath and waiting for the next ghostly revelation. Then there was Mark, who laughed off the scary stories, a pairing of bravado and dread. But even he couldn't hide the tremor in his voice when he mentioned the last boy who played in the Miller house. The entire neighborhood heard his scream echo in the night, a sound that cut through the darkness and left people awake, trembling, listening for what dreadful thing would come next. "You think he ever made it out?" he asked, glancing around, half hopeful, half terrified. And for a fleeting moment, silence wrapped around them like a thick fog, tightening the bonds of their fear. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect." As they continued talking, laughter mixed with uneasy glances, summoning shadows of secrets long buried. What if something really was out there, waiting? The air felt thick, the atmosphere electric as they traded stories. The clock ticked, each sound echoing ominously. Just when they thought the tension couldn't rise any higher, a sudden thump from the attic echoed through the house, sending shivers down their spines. Was it just the wind? Or was someone or something watching them? The friends exchanged terrified glances. Would they dare to find out? And for one of them, this night would change everything. The thump reverberated through the air, a morbid echo encapsulating their fears. Emma's eyes darted towards the attic door, the ominous shadows consuming the edges of the room. "What was that? Did you hear it?" she gasped, the words tumbling out in a rush. Mark straightened, his bravado wavered, and for the first time all night, he didn't meet their eyes. "Maybe it's just the house settling," he offered, though his voice cracked. Jenny hugged her knees, her face pale, the color draining from her cheeks. "What if it's not? What if stop? Just stop?" Emma shouted, her heart raced. Panic clawed at her throat. "We shouldn't mess with this." But it was too late. The fear was loud like sirens wailing in the silent night. The group fell into a heavy silence, the kind that choked all rational thought. The only sound was the steady tick-tock of the clock on the wall, each second a taunting reminder of their own vulnerability. "Let us go check," Mark said, swallowing hard, pretending he wasn't terrified. But with each passing moment, his knees felt weaker, betraying him. "Are you crazy?" Jenny's voice was barely above a whisper, her eyes wide like saucers. "What if it's her?" The weight of past horror hovered as if the ghost of the girl trapped in the Miller house listened, waiting for their next move. Emma peered toward the dimly lit corridor leading to the attic staircase, shadows dancing as if animated by an invisible specter. "We can't just sit here." "It's probably nothing," she insisted, but her own voice wavered. Right? They exchanged glances, a tenuous bond stitched together by fear. Slowly, they gathered courage, inching towards the hallway with hesitant breaths. Each creak of the floorboards underfoot felt like a shout in the suffocating silence. "Stay together," Jenny whispered urgently, clutching Emma's arm. "We can't split up." As they reached the foot of the attic stairs, the air thickened with unease, the dim light barely illuminating the steep steps leading into darkness. They could hear faint sounds above, an unsettling shuffling. The friends turned their heads toward each other, wide-eyed and breathing heavily, every pulse echoing their dread. "I'll go first," Mark announced, the words hanging heavy in the air as he stepped forward, backing up his bravado with shaky determination. He began climbing the stairs, one cautious step at a time, his footfalls muted by the carpet that seemed to absorb every ounce of sound. Behind him, the girls watched, terror etched across their faces. Emma felt the lump in her throat tighten until it was like a vice. "Mark, be careful," she urged, her voice strained. As Mark reached the top, his hand trembled over the attic door, the old wood groaning under his touch. He paused, the creaking seeming to echo his heartbeat. Was it merely the house reacting to his presence, or was there something else breathing in the shadows? Without a second thought, he swung open the door, the hinges screeching like something alive. A gust of stale air rushed out, making the lights flicker, plunging their world into sudden blackness. "No!" Emma screamed, as a ghostly figure rushed past Mark, filling the space with a chill so deep it wrapped around them, tightening like chains. "Did you see that?" Mark shouted, stumbling back, tripping on the edge of the stairs. As he fell, darkness swirled, drifting towards the open attic, an insatiable thirst for fear and despair. The girls screamed, voices mingling in a frenzy as something sinister unfolded. The moment hung heavy in the air, pregnant with dread. What was waiting for them in the swirling shadows? And as Mark hit the floor with a thud, the strange creaking sound returned, louder now, punctuated by whispers that danced just out of earshot. The night was only beginning, but little did they know, the malevolent spirit haunting the Miller house was closer than they thought. Who would vanish next? Mark scrambled to his feet, panic bubbling in his chest. The moment he landed, the realization set in. Darkness was not their enemy, it was something far worse. The attic door gaped open behind him, inviting a terror that thrived in shadows. What was that? Jenny cried, her voice trembling. Emma's heart raced as she recalled the stories they had been told about the Miller house, a girl who had vanished without a trace, her laughter forever trapped within these walls. "We shouldn't have come here," she whispered, glancing back at the stairs, retreating a little. "Focus. We need to see what just." Mark began, but his words twisted into a gulp. From the depths of the attic came a series of echoes, a soft humming that slithered through the air, sinister and intoxicating. The boys had always teased Jenny about her tendency to believe in the supernatural, but now the real terror clawed at their minds. "There's something up there," she gasped, her fingers digging into Emma's arm like a vice. Mark took a shaky step forward, the urge to flee battling with the need to confront whatever malevolent force lingered, a visceral fight within. He turned back to the girls, determination etched on his face. "We have to see. What if it's just a raccoon or something?" "Sure, a raccoon," Emma scoffed, but her voice lacked conviction. "How many raccoons wail like lost souls?" With apprehension gripping them, they stepped into the attic doorway. Dust motes hung in the air, swirling in the single beam of light that filtered through a small, grimy window. Shadows crouched at the corners, waiting. Mark led the way, unwilling to back down now. The floor creaked ominously beneath their weight. With every step, the hairs on the back of Emma's neck prickled. Suddenly, a distinct sound pierced the silence, a giggle. Not just any giggle, but one echoing with a hollow, childlike laughter that sent chills racing down their spines. It didn't just feel out of place, it felt threatening. "Somebody's up here," Mark murmured, his voice unsteady. "Or something," Jenny added, her eyes darting around. As they reached the center of the attic, unease transformed into bewilderment. Old, Dust-covered toys lay scattered about a rusty tricycle, a porcelain doll missing its left eye, and a tattered teddy bear. But the most striking sight was a crudely drawn circle in the middle of the floor, made with what looked like burnt ash. "What the hell is this?" Emma whispered, stepping closer, an old photograph half buried in the ashes catching her eye. She picked it up, revealing a familiar face. "It's her," she breathed, recognizing the girl from the stories, the one who had disappeared years ago. "Who?" Mark asked, leaning closer. His face paled as he took in the picture of the girl, her smile frozen in time, a ghost from the past. "Isn't that Sophie?" Jenny gasped, her voice trembling. "That's the girl." In a fevered panic, they darted glances around the attic, searching for a sign, a hint of Sophie's presence in the dark. The laughter echoed again, but this time, it was taunting them, drawing them deeper into the shadows as if it sought to pull them into its realm. "Guys, this isn't right. We need to go now," Emma insisted, her pulse quickening. But no one moved, transfixed as the shadows twisted and swirled, casting eerie shapes against the walls. And then they saw it, a shadowy figure, a silhouette flickering in and out of view, hovering near the window. A flick of movement that swelled and shuddered like a dark mirage, beckoning just beyond their reach. "Run!" Mark shouted, and the three of them bolted toward the stairs, terror igniting their legs. But as they dashed for the exit, a cold wind swept through them, as if to say, "Not so fast." They barreled down the steps, hearts pounding, but the swirling darkness followed, shrieking and howling, hungry for what it had lost. And when they reached the living room, Emma turned back for just a moment, instinct pulling her gaze. The attic door slammed shut, leaving the whispers behind, chilling in the silence. "Did we just let something out?" Mark's face was a mask of fear. "Is Sophie still up there? Is she trapped?" Jenny whispered, breathless. As they gathered their bearings, the reality of their situation settled like an uneasy weight. Their connection with the past was no mere coincidence. They had awakened something, and behind that door lay a mystery steeped in sorrow and darkness. In the quiet aftermath of their hurried descent, one question nagged at them: was the house even finished with its game, or had it only just begun? The room was thick with an unyielding silence, the kind that clung to their skin after the chaos of the attic. Emma, Mark, and Jenny stood frozen, their breaths shallow, exchanging wide-eyed glances that told of fear and questions unanswered. "What do we do now?" Mark finally breathed, as if admitting defeat. His voice cracked with tension, the bravado from before dissipating like mist in the morning sun. "We can't stay here. We have to figure out what just happened," Emma said, trying to sound poised but losing the battle against her racing heart. "Figure out what?" "That something from the attic is now with us." Jenny's voice quivered, trembling like a fragile leaf caught in an unforgiving breeze. "I don't want to be here anymore." The weight of her words pressed heavily upon them. Behind them, the once sturdy attic door now felt like an ominous barrier, sealing away who or what awaited within. "Let's check out the rest of the house," Mark suggested, his instinct to protect kicking in, even if his own fear was palpable. "Maybe something else can give us a clue about what is going on. Or we could find something worse," Jenny shot back, eyes darting at every shadow. But against her own reluctance, she nodded, swayed by the urgency in Mark's expression. They moved cautiously through the house, hearts racing, encased in darkness that seemed to wrap around them like a shroud. Every creak of the floorboards felt amplified, each sound an echo that pulsed with unseen life. As they ventured into the dim hallway, Emma noticed a series of photographs lining the walls. Faces of a family smiled back from yesteryears, a mother, a father, and two little girls. The smiles were haunting. They didn't feel like memories but rather a reminder of something deeply unsettling. "Do you think they knew what happened to Sophie?" Emma whispered, brushing her fingers over the dust-coated glass. Something about the images felt wrong, as if they were trapped in a moment too still for comfort. "I don't want to think about it," Jenny answered, a heavy quiver in her voice. "Whatever is here is still attached to them." We need to stay focused on getting out. Just then, a loud thump resonated from the living room, jolting them from their thoughts. They exchanged panicked glances, the air thickening with a new wave of dread. "Maybe it's nothing," Mark said, although his voice suggested otherwise, but the thump came again, followed by a faint string of laughter, the familiar chilling sound that had followed them from the attic. It was layered with something darker now, something that echoed with a sinister glee. "Come on," Jenny urged, her eyes wild with fear. They rushed toward the living room. The space was dimly lit, shadows dancing along the walls, twisting in shapes that threatened to engulf them. At the center, lay an ornate, dusty toy chest that hadn't drawn their attention before. It sat eerily open, a stark contrast to the careful order of the house. I didn't see that before," Emma stuttered, edging closer, drawn inexplicably to the chest as though it had a magnetism about it, something dark and alluring. "Don't," Mark warned, stepping back as if somehow he could physically distance them from its pull. But Emma, caught in the haze of unease, reached out. As her fingers brushed the edges of the chest, a sudden cold coursed through her arm, freezing her in place. The laughter rose louder now, filling the air with a cacophony that echoed both joy and malice. From within the chest, a flash of light danced, revealing a figure, a shadowy apparition that flickered, forming and reforming in an endless loop. "Stop it!" Jenny screamed. The temperature dropped even further, their breaths coming out in rattling gasps. And that's when they heard it, a soft voice, laced with mischief. "Come play." The lights flickered, and suddenly everything went pitch black. Panic erupted, bodies colliding as they stumbled back, desperately seeking any sense of familiar ground. The chest loomed as an inescapable presence, the laughter now erupting not from somewhere distant but from within the very shadows. Around them in the chaos, Emma lost her footing and fell to the floor. The heartbeat of fear quickened, her palm brushing against something wet, sticky. As her eyes adjusted to the darkness, she recognized it, ash, similar to what they'd found in the attic, and just as swiftly as the shadows had swallowed them, the lights returned, flooding the room with a blinding brightness. But it was the figure that held their attention, standing now tangible yet ethereal, bearing the unmistakable resemblance of the girl in the photograph. "Will you play with me now?" The laughter rang out around them, a joyful sound twisted with sorrow. The reality of the house and the depths of its ancient games settled like an icy hand against their throats. What had they just awakened, and what would be demanded of them in return? "Run!" Mark yelled, but it was too late. The swirling shadows were back, close and hungry, waiting to drag them into a darkness from which there might be no return. As they dashed for the door, the chilling realization pierced through. They hadn't come to lay Sophie to rest, they had unwittingly stepped into her game. And as the darkness began to close in, one haunting question resonated painfully in their minds: was Sophie truly the victim, or had she been the predator all along? Mark's breath quickened as shadows enveloped them, pulsing like a heartbeat. Instinctively, he grasped Emma's wrist, pulling her toward the door that felt miles away. Jenny dashed ahead, her feet pounding the hardwood floor as the laughter grew louder, wrapping around them like invisible chains. What does she want?" Emma gasped, nearly tripping over her feet as the figure flickered in and out of sight. It seemed to play games with their panic, teasing them with a hide-and-seek that would end in darkness. "I don't know. We can't stop now," Mark barked, his voice strained with urgency. The moment they reached the threshold, a bone-chilling laugh erupted, ringing out like a death knell. "You can't leave me," echoed through the room, cold and threatening, as if Sophie herself had woven herself into the very fabric of the house. With a desperate shove, they barreled out into the hallway where the air felt thicker, almost alive. As they stumbled into the crowded space, the walls began to close in. Photographs seemed to shift, the eyes of the family now darkened pools that bore into their souls. "Did you see that?" Jenny cried, spinning around. "They're watching us. Focus. We need to find a way out." Mark shouted, shaking with determination despite the fear coursing through his veins. They raced back toward the front door, only to find it sealing shut, an invisible barrier shimmering between them and escape. The laughter morphed into wails that seeped into their minds, chilling their very thoughts. Emma scrambled to push against it, but her palms met an unyielding surface. "Help me!" she cried, her voice breaking under the weight of despair. With no way forward, Mark turned back, searching for another exit. The shadows swirled, beckoning them with whispers of long-lost promises and lingering fears. Sophie came the echo, endless and taunting. "What do we do?" Jenny sobbed, breath hitching as panic clouded her vision. "We can't stay in here. I saw a window in the kitchen." Mark stammered, his resolve igniting. "We can get to it. Follow me." They darted through the living room again, heart rates pounding like war drums. The ghostly figure flitted around the edges, laugh mingling with growls. Each step felt like running through molasses, their bodies were heavy with dread. Suddenly, the lights flickered again, and then plunged them back into darkness. Emma's heart raced. She felt a hand brush against her shoulder and spun around, only to come face to face with the apparition. "Let us play," it sang, its eyes sparkling with a manic delight. "No!" Mark shouted, pushing Emma behind him. But the warmth of her presence gave way to icy fear, as Sophie lunged forward, glowing faintly in the dark. "Why doesn't anyone want to play with me?" The girl's voice dripped with sorrow, twisted into something menacing. "Because you hurt people," Jenny yelled, her voice rising above the cacophony. "We're not here to be part of your game." There was a moment of stillness before the shadows surged again. Sophie's form merged with them, blending into a mass of despair and rage. "We'll see about that," the disembodied voice hissed, each word slicing through the air. The walls began to shake, a low rumble reverberating through the house as if it were alive. "Now!" Mark shouted, pulling Emma and Jenny forward. They crashed through the door leading to the kitchen, the shadows screaming angrily behind them. The kitchen was just as frozen in time as the rest of the house, dust layered across the countertops, chairs untouched, but there was a single window. It loomed ahead like a beacon of hope, its glass fogged over. "Help me!" Mark pleaded, yanking at the window. It wouldn't budge. Panic swelled within him. "Damn it! Come on!" Emma joined him, clawing at the window frame. Behind them, the shadows thickened, coiling like a pack of wolves ready to strike. The laughter grew louder, echoing from every corner. "You can't escape. You belong to me now." With one last desperate push, Emma felt the glass finally shatter under her hands, the cold air rushing in. But it wasn't a relief, it felt like a more profound darkness beckoning them. "Go!" she yelled, shoving Mark through the jagged opening. He tumbled onto the grass outside, eyes wide with urgency as he reached back for her and Jenny. As Jenny jumped through, a beam of light pierced the dense darkness, illuminating the yard beyond. But before Emma could follow, a firm grip seized her wrist. She turned, heart in her throat, to meet Sophie's gleaming eyes. "Play with me forever," the voice whispered, chillingly sweet. Emma's heart pounded as she screamed, wrenching free from the grip, but the shadows were closing in, hungry and relentless. With a final push, she tore herself away, launching into the open air, where Mark and Jenny waited, urgency alight in their eyes. "Run!" they yelled in unison, their shouts reverberating through the dark. As they sprinted across the yard into the night, the laughter pursued them, echoing across the field, whispering promises of a game never played and a horror that wouldn't end. What awaited them in the darkness of the woods, and were they truly free, or was this just another level of Sophie's twisted game? The answers loomed like shadows at their backs, ready to swallow them whole. The night air bit at their skin as they raced toward the tree-line, shadows still clawing at their heels like a pack of ravenous dogs. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if the very ground beneath them sought to draw them back into the home from which they had just barely escaped. "Where do we go?" Emma gasped, her breath hitching. The weight of Sophie's laughter still echoed in her mind, a grave reminder that they were not out of harm's reach yet. "Just keep moving," Mark urged, his voice strained but firm. "We need to put some distance between us and that house." We can't let her follow us. They plunged into the woods, the dense canopy overhead swallowing the moonlight, enveloping them in darkness. Branches snagged at their clothes, grabbing hold like desperate fingers. Jenny stumbled, gasping, I can't keep running. Mark turned back, his heart pounding. Come on, Jenny. We're almost safe, but even as he spoke, a chill crept up his spine, a deepening sense of dread filling the air. In the distance, glimmers of forbidden light flickered and waned, pulsing like a heartbeat synced to their own rising panic. Do you see that? Emma whispered, staring into the gloom. It was faint but undeniable, a pale glow that rose from behind a thicket, beckoning them deeper into the forest. Maybe it's a way out. Mark suggested, hope edging into his tone. Let's check it out. No. Jenny protested, shaking her head vigorously. It could be another trap. But Emma, drawn to the light like a moth to flame, took a tentative step forward. We have to see what it is. As they drew closer, the glow morphed into shapes, thin strands, weaving through the trees, creating an almost ethereal doorway. What is this? Mark whispered, wide-eyed as he surveyed the otherworldly light. Could this be the way to escape? Just then, the laughter wrapped around them again, threading through the trees and lingering in the air, taunting their very souls. You can't leave me. You're playing whether you want to or not. Sophie's voice echoed through the leaves, turning Mark's blood to ice. They froze, caught between fear and fascination, and the warmth of the light made them instinctively bend toward it. Look! Jenny exclaimed, spotting something shining on the forest floor. What is that? A delicate silver pendant glimmered among the roots, almost like a calling card. Emma reached for it, her fingers brushing against the cool metal. The instant she touched it, a kind of electric shock coursed through her, pulling her deeper into the light's grasp. The forest shifted, the trees bending as if alive. Panic surged as the pendant unleashed a chilling whisper. It's not what you think. Mark gripped Emma's arm, trying to pull her back. The whisper danced in the air like a lover's soft breath, weaving seduction and sorrow. You can join us, Emma. Leave the others behind. It will be so much fun. No. She cried, wrenching free as the shadows began to take form, twisting into anguished faces, eyes glinting with a haunting hunger. It's a trap. Run! Mark shouted again, dragging Jenny along, but Emma was rooted in place, staring at the pendant as if it held the answer to all their fears. Suddenly, darkness charged from behind, the shadows swirling into a vortex. Sophie's laughter crescendoed, an angry symphony of chaos. The forest warped, branches transforming into skeletal hands that clawed toward them. Without thinking, Mark bolted forward, pulling Emma away from the pendant. We have to, but before he could finish his sentence, the ground beneath them gave way, as thick roots burst up to trap their legs. They were ensnared, caught in Sophie's web of horror. With a desperate surge of strength, Emma kicked free, but time froze as they glanced back. The light flickered, revealing a vision of children locked in play, shackled to everlasting darkness, their eyes pleading and lost. What if this is really the way? Emma wondered aloud, fighting against the truth that gnawed at her instincts. They hesitated, fear and uncertainty coursing through them. Could they really escape? Or would stepping into that light seal their fates? With Sophie's icy laughter bearing down on them, the choice loomed, and they had only seconds to decide. Would they risk everything to plunge into the unknown, or would they stand their ground against the whispers of the past? The weight of their decision hung heavily in the air as silence fell, broken only by the desperate beating of their hearts. Would this be their liberation, or their doom? The shadows shifted, and the answer danced on the edge of the darkness, waiting to claim its next victims. Emma's heart raced, her mind a storm of chaos as she fought the pull of the pendant and the glowing light. We have to go, now. She cried out, desperation clawing at her throat. But even as she shouted, her voice reverberated with uncertainty. A lingering doubt flooded her thoughts. The laughter swirled around them, wrapping tighter than the very roots that had held them captive moments before. It was a sound both sweet and sickening. "You'll see, you'll see," it teased, echoing through the trees like a sinister lullaby. Mark was pulling on Emma's arm, his grip tightening. "We're not going back. We can't fall for this." The branches around them twisted, almost alive, reaching with curious urgency, as if they too were caught in Sophie's game. "We can't leave her behind," Jenny whimpered, her voice trembling. Fear ignited blind panic in Emma's chest. The vision of those trapped children flickered in her mind again, their hollow gazes pleading for rescue. "What if we're the only chance they have?" "No!" Mark shouted, his voice cutting through the tension. "Those kids, or we can't, they're already gone." But it was too late. The shadows began to sway, morphing into forms both alluring and terrifying. Emma felt the weight of their gazes, drawing her in, offering comfort in that agonizing uncertainty. Join us," they whispered, their voices a devastating echo of dreams turned nightmares. "Emma!" Mark's voice penetrated her reverie, shaking her free from the seductive shadows. "Look at me." She turned to face him just as the world around them began to ripple and twist, dissolving into darkness. "We have to escape," he continued, determination painted across his face. "If we get lost in there," but before he finished his sentence, the darkness coalesced, a wall rising around them, suffocating any chance of escape. The pendant still gleamed, calling out to Emma. She felt its magnetic pull, hot and cold at the same time, as visions of laughter and joy seeped into her being. What if it was not a trap? What if it really was a way to save those lost? "Emma!" Jenny's frantic whisper broke through the haze, reminding her of the present. "Don't touch it. It's not worth it." With a deep breath, Emma clenched her fists. "You're right. It's not worth it." Her heart hammered in her chest as she forced herself to take a step back. Mark's eyes widened in surprise, hope flickering in the desperate situation. At that instant, the shadows lunged forward, intertwining with their very essence, testing their resolve. "Stay together!" Mark shouted, pulling them in closer as the light from the pendant dimmed, overwhelmed by the swirling darkness that was raging to claim them. Suddenly, the roots that had captured them receded as if sensing their defiance. The air thickened, every exhale tasting of dread, but the oppressive shadows began to retract. With every pulse of their collective will, they moved. "Run!" Mark shouted for the final time, his voice piercing through the fog of fear. They tore into the darkness, dodging grabbing limbs and creeping tendrils that desperately sought them. Yet, even as they sprinted through the monstrous forest, they felt something behind them, a weighty silence that seeped into their bones. Sophie's laughter morphed into shrieks of anger, bouncing back and forth, ricocheting through the trees like arrows. "You cannot escape me. You're mine." The forest brightened abruptly, a blinding white illuminating the path ahead. They dodged trees, desperately racing toward the light, not quite believing it could be their salvation. But as they burst from the twisted vines of the woods, their hearts sank. They stood at the edge of a cliff, a sheer drop into a black abyss that seemed to swallow every trace of the twilight. Mark staggered, dread pooling in his stomach. What do we do?" The ground rumbled beneath them, sending jolts of energy through their bodies as shadows loomed closer. The tension spiraled, and Emma felt the pull of the pendant once more, whispering promises of power and safety if only she would reach for it. The choice loomed larger than ever, and with every second, the shadows grew ever bolder, waiting for them to topple back into despair just like the lost souls they had seen. "Don't look back," Mark urged as Sophie's laughter crescendoed into maniacal howls at their heels. But Emma felt anchored to that glimmering pendant, the lines between hope and treachery blurring. What awaited them on the other side of the void? Could they truly take the leap together, or was surrendering the only release from this nightmare? With the wind howling fiercely around them, the answer danced on the precipice, inviting, taunting, and utterly terrifying. As the howling wind whipped around them, Emma stood frozen at the cliff's edge, her heart drumming a frantic rhythm in her chest. Mark's intense gaze bore into hers, pleading, yearning for a decision. But the pendant-esque glow hypnotized her, tantalizing and drawing her in, filling her with visions of what could be freedom, power, and the lost children smiling with joy. Emma. Mark's voice broke through her reverie again, sharper this time. The shadows loomed closer, and the shrieks of Sophie surged, rising like a tempest of fury behind them. Every second spent hesitating chipped away at their chance that I in her mind, a silent scream echoed. She could remember the touch of the pendant, the way it had felt warm against her skin, like a heartbeat. The sweet laughter of the trapped children rang in her ears, snatching hope from despair. What if they really are out there, she thought. Mark grabbed her shoulders. We can't stay here. If we jump, if we even touch that pendant. His voice trembled as the ground quaked beneath them. What choice do we have? Jenny's whisper was barely audible, filled with dread. The abyss below seemed to ripple violently, as though it sensed their panic. It was a portal, a mouth poised to swallow them whole. The shadows danced closer, flickering like hungry flames, eager to devour their fear. Sophie's laughter dissolved into bone-chilling cries. You're not brave enough. You'll always belong to me. Enough. Emma shouted, fighting to stay grounded. She had to make a choice. In the chaos of swirling uncertainty, the whispers rose again, seducing her mind. What if the pendant can help? What if it can save everyone? This time, she turned towards the cliff, feeling the visceral pull of the unknown. I can't let them down, she thought, her hands trembling with inner conflict. What if this leap truly led to salvation? What if surrendering meant they would join those lost and could never turn back? Emma, please. Mark's voice was raw now, as if he felt her slipping from reach. We have to run. We can find another way. His breath came fast, urgency flooding the air, the shadows hissed, their twisted forms flickering, and Emma felt her resolve waver. She wanted to believe the pendant could save them, but what if it was a gateway to something darker? A cold sweat broke out along her brow, and in that instant, the world around her shifted. Suddenly, something cold coiled around her ankle. Emma looked down to see a root rising from the ground, wrapping tighter as if urging her towards the void. Panic surged within her like wildfire. Mark! Jenny! She cried, struggling against the grip of the earth. Mark lunged forward, shaking her violently. Fight it! Fight it, Emma! His face was twisted in anguish as he wrestled with the situation, desperately trying to pull her back. Just then, a sudden burst of energy shot upwards from the cliff, illuminating their surroundings. Emma gasped, seeing ghostly images of the children trapped in time, their faces etched with fear but eyes glistening with silent screams. She could feel their pain, their longing. With a fierce determination igniting deep within her, Emma wrenched her foot free from the root's grasp. We are not giving up yet. She spun away from the cliff, racing towards Mark and Jenny. We can fight together. But it was too late. The shadows unleashed their fury, a tidal wave of dark energy crashing forward, leaving devastation in their wake. The laughter returned, savage and unrelenting, calling her back, taunting her resolve. Run! Mark yelled, pulling at Emma's hand as they stumbled backward, hearts thundering. But as they turned to flee, they realized it wasn't just the shadows they needed to outrun, it was their own doubts, the emotions grinding into fear. And then the abyss called again, an unnatural, eerie whisper, "You'll always come back to me, Emma." As they plunged further into the darkness, a shadow snaked forward, striking the edges of her mind, wrapping itself around her thoughts. The cliff was gone, there was no turning back. But what if the way forward led right back toward the pendant? Was it the source of their salvation, or the very cage Sophie had crafted for them? With each step they took, the path shifted, uncertainty rising in a suffocating tide. And Emma could only wonder, what awaited them at the edge of the unknown? Would they find the strength to conquer the invisible chains pulling them back, or would they unravel into the night? The darkness pressed in around them, heavy and toxic. Emma could feel it clinging to her skin, harsh like a fog. The whispers swirled, growing louder, twisting into a cacophony that gnawed at her sanity. "They need you." It was Sophie's voice, chilling and sweet like poison. "Keep running," Mark shouted, his grip tightening around Emma's wrist as they sprinted into the unknown. Behind them, the shadows writhed, hungry and relentless. She glanced back just in time to see something dark and jagged lurch toward them, nearly breaking through the veil of night. Jenny's breath burst into panicked gasps beside them. What was that? What was it? Emma didn't dare answer. She didn't want to think about it. All she could do was focus on each step, heart hammering in her chest. Left. She yelled, dodging the massive roots that reached out like skeletal hands, threatening to tangle them once again. "Where are we even going?" Mark shouted, his voice strained with desperation. The ground beneath their feet shifted, each footfall ripping apart the earth. Emma's mind raced, piecing together fragments of the stories they'd heard about the pendant. Maybe it's a part of this? Fear curdled in her stomach. To get to them, we need to confront it. Mark halted abruptly, pulling her back. "Are you crazy? That's where Sophie wants us to go, toward the pendant." The shadows seemed to ripple at that word, their hunger insatiable. Emma could feel the air around them crackling with energy, as if the world was holding its breath. "But what if it can help?" she argued, shaking with fear and conviction. "What if we can use it against her?" The ground behind them crumbled, shifting dangerously and pulling at their heels. They had to decide. The choice was hanging in the air like a storm cloud. Mark glanced at Jenny, whose eyes were wide with terror but flickering with a hint of hope. "We have to lock arms," he said, his voice low and steady. "We can't let go, not again. Are you with me?" Emma felt the pull of the abyss tugging at her, but she nodded. "Together," she whispered, locking her free hand with Jenny's to create a tight circle. As they turned back, the pendant rose before them, pulsating with a light that shifted between a warm glow and a cold flicker. The shadows recoiled slightly, afraid yet curious, as if they realized the power before them. "Step forward," Emma urged, determination swelling in her chest. Each step felt like a sparking fuse, igniting hidden flames of courage within her. The mist swirled like a serpent coiling around the trio, but they moved as one, united in purpose. Just then, a blinding light erupted from the pendant, cutting through the darkness like a knife. It felt alive, vibrating with energy. Emma gasped, caught in its radiance, but then came the voices, twining through the air, children's laughter, a sweet melody tainted by something sinister. "Emma! You could save us." The voices rang, echoing off the walls of her mind. "Join us, you know you want to, don't listen." Mark yelled above the growing chorus, shaking Emma's shoulders, his eyes fierce. "They're lies, all lies." But Emma hesitated, feeling an inexplicable connection tugging at her heart. In that moment, the shadows howled, a furious reminder of what lay behind them. They weren't just fighting darkness, they were fighting for their souls. "I'm not afraid," Emma shouted, though the fear twisted in her gut. The air crackled around them, and she felt the weight of 1,000 eyes watching, waiting for her next move, and then, just as the light intensified, the ground shook violently. It was a tremor that felt primordial, a voice of the earth itself. Emma stumbled, grappling for balance as she felt the pull of the darkness reach out, ensnaring her ankles. "Emma!" Mark's voice pierced through the chaos, raw with fear. "The pendant is more dangerous than you know. We have to make a choice." Time seemed to stretch, the air thick with dread on one side and an unknown promise on the other. She could either risk it all with the pendant, or turn and face the beasts of the shadows. As the decision loomed, a heart-wrenching scream pierced through the clamor, chilling her blood. It was a sound that echoed beyond the shadows, wrapping around her soul. "Help me, Emma!" A voice she recognized all too well. Her breath caught. What awaited them as they stood on the precipice of choice? Would they cling to the hope of saving the lost, or succumb to the dark? The whirlwind of shadows closed in, and Emma's heart raced as she took a shaky step forward. Emma took a deep breath, her lungs filling with courage that felt foreign, yet empowering. The shadows thrashed around her, desperate and hungry, their whispers tempestuous as they sought to drag her back into the abyss she had momentarily escaped. The split-second decision loomed ahead of her, and as the tremors from the pendant's blinding light sensed her wavering, she willed herself to focus on the voice calling her. "Sophie," she whispered, thinking of the girl trapped in this cycle of horror, a victim in sorrow, someone who had desperately needed help. "I can help you, but you need to let me." Mark and Jenny, trembling but steadying their grips around each other, rallied behind her, faces taut with fear. They understood this moment held endless weight, a chance to finally break free from the nightmare, or a step closer to damnation. With one uncertain step forward, Emma reached for the pendant. The light surged anew, illuminating the depths of whatever darkness lay ahead. She grasped its surface, feeling a jolt of warmth, but also something else, a weight of sadness, loss, and terror, wrapped in childhood laughter twisted by despair. Suddenly, the shadows surged, roaring with anger, a wave of darkness that threatened to engulf them all. "You can't have her." Sophie's voice echoed in a manic glee, resonating like nails on a chalkboard, rising above the chaos. The shadows lashed out, swirling in a frenzy, trying to reclaim what they had lost. "Hold on. Stay together," Mark shouted, his voice steadying Emma as he grasped her other arm, pulling her close. "We'll make this work." In that instant, all three felt a connection, a pulse between them that beat in rhythm with the light in the pendant. As Sophie's voice screeched, "You're trapped," Emma screamed back, "No. We aren't." The moment exploded. With a surge of momentum, the light from the pendant exploded outward like a brilliant sun, consuming the shadows in radiant beams. It felt as if every ounce of grief, every unmet plea that had spiraled through Sophie's torment, was being lifted away. With the brightness enveloping them, Emma, Mark, and Jenny pushed forward with the strength of their unity. They let every sorrow and fear spill into the light, interweaving their intentions with the power pulsing in the pendant. It was a cacophony of emotions laid bare: empathy, anguish, and above all hope. As they emerged from the shadows, they saw her, Sophie, trapped in a flickering web of darkness. The child's face betrayed layers of grief layered over her own pain. She looked lost, her eyes reflecting the children who had vanished like whispers on the wind. "It ended with you, Sophie," Emma cried, holding the pendant aloft, letting its brightness shield them against the shadows. "We can help you finish this. Just let them go." In a blinding flash, the shadows recoiled. For a moment, it was as if time stood still. Sophie's silhouette shimmered, and the gathering darkness pulsed erratically. The laughter morphed into high-pitched wailing, an outpouring of anguish that echoed through the woods, manifesting in fleeting images of the children once lost, their frightened faces shifting through memories, finally merging into the blinding light. Sophie faltered, her image wavering. "Don't leave me," her voice cried out, but Emma felt only compassion. "We won't leave you. We'll help you find peace." In that surge of glowing warmth, the weight of sadness lifted, vanishing into irrelevance as the darkness shrank away, roaring in frustration before dissipating into thin air. Sophie's form softened and grew brighter, almost merging with the glow until the shadows vanished entirely. With one last wild, echoing scream that transformed into a chorus of laughter, the essence of lost souls danced around them before fading back into the night. A warm breeze filled the clearing, whispering through leaves, filled with joy, a ghostly celebration of freedom finally realized. "What just happened?" Jenny murmured, breathless, looking around as everything calmed. Mark squeezed Emma's shoulders, relief flooding his eyes. "We did it. We actually did it." Emma, holding the pendant, looked up at the stars twinkling brightly overhead, the moon glowing like a guardian watching over them. "We set her free, and the others too." A silence settled in, an acknowledgement of their pain but also of their victory. They stood in triumphant solidarity, three friends who had faced a nightmarish horror and emerged together, stronger and unbroken, but the echoes of the past would always linger, whispering a lesson learned about empathy and understanding that entangles with horror. They turned their backs on the now silenced woods, the shadows of fear now just memories, knowing they would carry these experiences within them forever. As dawn broke, painting the sky with hints of warmth, they walked away, determined never to forget, but ready to cherish each other and the lives they saving through one monumental, life-changing night. And listen closely, if you're still here, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for stories that leave you on the edge. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Every click counts. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this conclusion because I want to hear from you, and for goodness sake, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this heart-pounding conclusion. Let us keep the excitement going. Join our community, be part of the adventure. You're not just viewers, you're family.